Badaliyya sessions, year 2020 to 2021. This is study of Christian spirituality in the context of Islam. Mainly, the conferences will be based on our experiences in Southern Philippines, living with Muslims since 1967, but more intensely from 1974 onward. It will be a sharing of experiences. That is the first part. Second part will be the examination of the basis for that kind of spirituality from the church document. And this will be a monthly conference on a form of Christian spirituality for people living in the midst of Muslim. It is a spirituality, not the spirituality, to simply indicate that there's no one form of spirituality for people living with other religion, particularly Islam. There are as many forms of spirituality as forms of missionary activities within the context of Islam. I will begin this conference simply by my first experience of Islam or Muslims in the southern Philippines. The first thing is when I went to the Empire Province of Cotabato in 1965, being born and grew up in Metro Manila. So Cotabato will be very, very strange to me. I grew up in a Christian family, Christian community, and thinking that everybody was Christian. And then suddenly I got a visitor. We got a visitor in our school, a vocation director of the Oblates of Mary Immaculate, and introduced to me the work of the Oblates in Mindanao, particularly in the Empire Province of Cotabato, which was then as big as the whole central Luzon and the archipelago of Sulu, now the two provinces of Sulu and Tawi-Tawi. And the vocational director was so convincing that was able to convince me because I was a strong man and I want a adventurous life, more pioneering work. And it told our class that they need pioneers with a lot of courage and living among the Muslims. And that fascinated me and I got interested. So my course changed from wanting to become a politician to becoming a priest. And a priest not only in the church in Ubando, where I was born, or in Metro Manila, but a priest in the far-flung areas such as Mindanao, never heard, and very distant from my place. One attractive element is that living and working among the Muslim, a pioneering work. So finally, I landed in Cotabato in June of 1964, or 65 rather. And my first time to see along the riverbank of Rio Grande, that is Pulangi River, different mosques along the both sides of the bank. And of course, meeting also Muslims in their turban and some in their hijab, other people's just passengers and other people meeting. There was no pier. We were right there in the middle of nowhere. A barge went to the boat and we landed in the barge. And the barge brought us to Cotabato City. That will only be able to serve a ferry boat, not a big boat ferrying passengers from Manila to Cotabato. Then the following day, the first thing that I heard will be, now I know the call to prayer. Uh, and then I heard this 5 times a day. You see. The whole early dawn, I heard that Allahu Akbar. I was asking people at breakfast what was that cry that I heard early dawn, see, in Cotabato City. And the same thing also, cry, call to prayer just before noontime. And similarly also in the mid-afternoon, And then the last call to pray that was made will be at Maghreb, the vesper, or what we call the evening prayer. So I heard it four times. Of course, there was another prayer in the evening, but the Ish prayer, but I never heard it anymore. But very prominent because they were using microphone will be the dawn prayer, the Zohr prayer, noon time, and the Asr prayer, or the mid afternoon, and the Maghreb prayer, or the evening prayer. And I was so curious that I asked, what was that call to prayer? And somebody in the community explained to me that that call to prayer will be calling the Muslims to their obligations of five times prayer that they have to do in order to be good followers of Islam and belonging to the community of the Prophet. So I was already wondering what that Prophet, that religion of Islam, but my curiosity was becoming stronger and stronger, and I kept all this in my heart, and I told myself that I will study and see what all this meant to me and to our community. So that was the beginning of my interest in the religion of Islam and the culture of also of the Bangsamoro, or the Muslim at that time, or the Moro in southern Philippines, particularly in Cotabato and the archipelago of Sulu. But this was heightened when I worked with Father Jerry Rickson, our anthropologist then at Notre Dame Apollo College, who was preparing for his master's degree. And he took me as a research partner, particularly to live in the midst of Muslims in the interior of Sulu, particularly in Indanan. But I was covering not only Indanan, but also Parang and Blaan then. So these were the three municipalities went around. I went also to Butangis, and I was the only Christian in that particular area. And I was supposed to take note of my interviews of the Muslims, especially the religious leaders, those who have been retired, and similarly also the old ladies. My task then will be to take note, to inventory the rituals of the Muslim Tausug, particularly in the interior. They call them the Tau Gimba. All the rituals associated to the from birth to death of a Muslim in the community. So because of this, I went around and interviewed a lot of people, particularly old ladies as well as old imams and ustad or pandita, on the spirituality as well as in the rituals, and then the different aspect of life of the Taugimba, the Moro, from birth to the grave. So to me, that was a very important portion of my life because I was living alone as a lone Christian in the interior. I was adopted by a Muslim family. He was the mayor, of course, of Indanan then, and Mayor Dato Andan Indanan, and married to Ekwe, Chinese mestiza. And I was part of the whole family. That will be my first Muslim family. I've been adopted and I've been part of that family. So that's why most probably that familial approach to Islam and to the Muslims have been the characteristic of my life in living with them, because my first experience of being adopted in a family and living like one of the members of the family during the duration of my research in the interior. And then attending also different rituals, particularly that I remember will be the ritual of Ashura, wherein we went to the Parang because Indana will be landlocked. So if you want to go to the sea, you have to go to Parang then. And we went to the sea for the feast of the Ashura, the cleansing of our sins. And that, of course, sounded familiar to me that they go there, the practice of the Taugimba, the Muslim then, in 1970. And then after that, another experience that will be very moving will be the celebration of the birth of the Prophet Muhammad sallallahu alaihi wasallam in the little mosque, wherein the different panditas, it will be the local ustads and local imam, were were gathered around and reciting the different remembrance of God, the Dikr Lillah. And my first experience also of the prayer of the Dikr Lillah, wherein they went around in a circle and then each of them chanting the different remembrance of Allah. And that went whole night. And while the different leaders of the community, particularly panditas, were reciting this dhikr lillah, and the ladies coming also and preparing food, so that it's a whole night affair, whole night celebration, and celebration of Maulud. It's a big celebration in the community wherein everybody prepared, brought food to the mosque, and the elders also take turn around in the recitation of the remembrance of Allah. This most probably experiences made me decide that I have to study Islam, and because I told myself the Moros have been subjugate. I've been living with the Spaniards for 350 years, and they resisted the Spaniards, and they went through all the wars. And then they, of course, defeated by the Americans, and they were under the Americans for 50 years. And the Moro as a society is very solid, and not only very solid, but very proud of their history, the history of struggle, as well as very proud of religion, which is the religion of Islam. And I noticed also that this is the Islam that was practiced by their ancestors, meaning to say that the first missionaries, Muslim missionaries, these are the teachings of the early missionaries. So they're connected to that history. Because at that time already, there are a lot of people going to Saudi Arabia and coming back with different brand of Islam, which is Wahhabi. And they could not understand the elders, and the elders cannot understand them too. But I've been telling people that the Islam in the Philippines is 800 years old, you see, much older than Christianity. And it's Islam that was able to resist the Spanish colonization as well as Christianization. Similarly, also resisted the Americans. So they cannot just say the this all these upstarts coming from the Middle East trying to denigrate the Muslim in the Philippines, especially their ancestors, as folk Islam. I was telling them that this is stronger than your Islam because this is Islam that has been tested for 500 years, 700 years, 800 years. And the tradition is alive, you see, and the religion is alive, you see, in people. So then I told myself I have to study this. Not only what makes these people think that's the Bangsamoro, which is the religion of Islam, but what is in the religion, because I see also the spirituality, you see, of the Muslims, particularly the rural folks. The retired panditas, when I interview them, we have to stop, at certain time moments because they need to do the cleansing and the praying. So I was so fascinated. So I told myself that yes, I have to study that Islam. That's a decision made way back in 1970 that I will become a student of Islam, and I become a student of Islam even today. That means read anything written about Islam that come my way, or in the library that I visit, we go to that section of Islam and see the books that I have read or not read, the books that I have to add to my library. It's a fascination that continues to itch, you see, that continues to be a flame in my heart to know more about that religion. This is very important. So that is by way of introduction before going actually to my actual living with them when I was assigned in Durawan and Datupiang, and staying there for 10 years. And even when I'm out of Datupiang, living in Cotabato, all my friends, the Muslims, my contact, my families, the Muslims that become members of my families, and life with them. See, this is the thing that I will share. The second portion, perhaps, is that why I'm very asked often why I have that kind of passion for Islam, passion for Mindanao, passion for Sulu, passion for the Muslim, passion for the Bangsamoro, passion for their struggle too, because I very much identify with their struggle. Then at that time, because this will be prior to immediately, that will be immediately prior to Vatican II, that particular epoch, you see. And then Vatican II documents are beginning to filter into Cotabato and Mindanao, though not yet because the main attention then was the liturgy. So the documents on the church document for non-Christian is still there, but not widely diffused. It's only when I begin in my study of I said that passion that I found in the document of Vatican II, particularly the document on the non-Christian religions, our relations with non-Christian religion, but specifically number three. That number three became what called the mantra that I use, and the mantra also I use for my students in my long years of teaching Islam. And I read number three of that said document. Upon the Muslims too, the church looks with esteem. They adore one God, living and enduring, merciful and all powerful, maker of heaven and earth, and speaker to men. They strive to submit wholeheartedly even to his inscrutable decrees, just as did Abraham, with whom the Islamic faith is pleased to associate itself. Though they do not acknowledge Jesus as God, they revere him. They revere him as a prophet. They also honor Mary, his virgin mother. At times they call on her too with devotion. In addition, they await the day of judgment when God will give each man his due after raising him up. Consequently, they praise the moral life and give worship to God, especially through prayer, almsgiving, and fasting. Although in the course of centuries, many quarrels and hostilities have arisen between Christians and Muslims, this most sacred synod urges all to forget the past and to strive sincerely for mutual understanding. In behalf of all mankind, let them make common cause of safeguarding and fostering social justice, moral values, peace, and freedom. So number three became sort of my mantra and my guidepost in my relationship with Muslims. And that to me is a big revelation, and not only something fresh air blowing our way in relating to non-Christian religions, but particularly our relationship with Muslim. I would begin by simply reiterating the first part of that number three, upholding the Muslim in high esteem. So this can be what we call an examinations of our life, whether truly we hold the Muslim in high esteem, as the document tells us that the church holds the Muslim with high esteem. So the first thing will be the review of my prejudices against Muslim, particularly about the Moro, the language I use to refer to the Moro and to refer to religion, and to see whether I truly hold not only the Muslim but Islam in high esteem. So that is the first examination that I have done in my relationship with Islam and in developing a spirituality, my own spirituality as Badal vis-a-vis my life with the Muslims. So this is the first question. Do I truly hold Islam in high esteem? Do I truly hold the Muslims in high esteem? Very important is the emphasis that we worship one living God, and a God who speaks to men. But the name of this God is merciful and compassionate. And in due course, that I studied Arabic and studied the Quran, that all the chapter of the Quran, except for one, begins in the name of God, the merciful and all compassionate. Bismillah Rahman Rahim. So this is very important that not only the very basis of the esteem that I hold for Islam and the very basis of my esteem for the Muslim precisely because of the belief of that one God who is all merciful and all compassionate, and the belief in that one God who speaks to us, who speaks to us about His will, you see. And it is for this reason that Muslims seek to submit themselves wholeheartedly, unreservedly, you see, to the inscrutable will of God. And it is no accident that Muslim is the eighth form of the verb salama, means to surrender. A person who surrenders is a Muslim to the will of God. So that is very important discovery on my part when dealing with the Vatican II document, particularly that number three. And then, yes, though they do not accept Jesus as the Son of God, they recognize Jesus as a prophet, you see, a special prophet, a great prophet, you see. And at times also they honor his mother Mary and with great devotion. And fourthly, what is very important is that they go for moral life, you see. They work for justice, peace, you see. And the call of the council, the Sacred Council, will be though there are centuries of hostilities, misunderstanding, and conflict between the religion of Islam and Christianity, Muslims and Christians. This Sacred Council, that's Vatican II, appeal to all to forget the past and begin a new kind of relationship, which perhaps later on in our Badaliyya, when we tackle about the Muslim letters, uh, the common bond, we will discover that the common bond that unites Muslims and Christians will be particularly love of God and love of neighbor. So my point on here is that we are in the same boat in trying to submit ourselves to the will of God and to God who is compassionate and merciful, and that we work for a new order in our society, the moral order, justice, and peace. And I told myself perhaps this could be the elements of spirituality that we need, you see, particularly living with Muslims. First and foremost will be to recognize who they are and to recognize religion and hold them with high esteem. And second, very important is that find the kindredness, you see, between my religion, which is Christianity, my following of Jesus, and the life of the Muslims. So, which is very important. To me, this is very important in shaping spirituality amidst Muslims. And the third, very important to me, is that recognition that we all work for a new social order, a moral order, a just order, a peaceful community, which is very important. That we all call to work for justice, peace, and for freedom. And very important, equally important, is that not turning blind eyes to the past, but rather recognizing the many conflicts and hostilities. But at the same time, part of that hostility is being able to begin anew, to pick up the pieces through our forgiving and establishing a new relations between and among new people of goodwill. So I stop here for a while. Hey! Maingay kayo!